This video is brought to you by
Hochland Photographer's Clothing.
In this lesson, we will leave the automatic mode and switch directly into manual mode. But I will explain you what exactly the manual mode does in a lesson later, a total lesson only about manual mode. But for now, it's not important to know, again, aperture, a shutter speed, ISO, and so on. It's only important to know what makes an image brighter and what makes an image darker. And maybe are some other things changing as well when you change some settings in the camera. And for you, it's now only important what wheel to turn. And that's what I actually did when I started photography. I did not know about shutter speed, about aperture, and so on. I did only know when I turn on this wheel, it gets brighter in this direction, and when I turn in the other direction, it gets a little bit darker. And there's another wheel maybe here on the front, and when I turn this wheel here, it gets brighter in this direction, and it gets darker in this direction. And at some point, there are some difficulties, and at some other situations, it's not that difficult. That's all you need to know really when you start. But in this course, of course, you need to learn more, and you will learn more. But for now, it's only important that you know what the different wheels do in brighter and darker relations. So I will teach you now the zero game. And I called it myself zero game. I don't know if there's another name for that, but I call it zero game. So whenever I will tell you, do the zero game now, you know what to do after this lesson. What we will do now is we photograph the exact same scenarios we did before in the auto mode, but now in manual mode, and try to expose ourselves on zero. That's why we call it, or I call it, the zero game. As mentioned, I go now in the manual mode. So turn your camera now on manual mode. And now I go here back on my shell. If ISO is turned on auto, click the ISO button and put it on 100. So the ISO should not be on auto because this would be in auto mode. We don't want to photograph auto now, but only manual. And as you can see now here, the image is super dark. And I can see it from my bare eye. But also, when I click the focus button here and not press it all the way through, this would mean I take a photo, I only press it halfway to focus, then you either get a little marker or your camera tells you, now in my case blinking, minus 2.0. And that means when it's minus, it's too dark. And that's also what I can see. So the camera tells me it's too dark with the minus 2 in this case, also blinking. So attention, attention, blinking, blinking. And as well from my eye, I can see it's too dark. So what do I do to make it brighter? I have to turn some of those wheels. That's what I do now. And it doesn't matter what wheel you turn now, just turn any of the wheels. Either that back wheel here, or when you have a front wheel here, you can try to turn that. When you have a wheel here, you can turn that. I now will turn this wheel here on the back. I turn it, and in my case now, it's the shutter speed. And the shutter speed now, I try to turn as long as it's not minus anymore, but zero. And this is the zero game. So I try to set the marker away from the minus 2, minus 1 to 0, because then the camera says it's a proper exposure. I turn it until it is 1/30th of a second. Take the photo, maybe take a safety shot. So the camera settings are now f5.6, ISO 100, 1/30th of a second.
Hi, I'm Albert Ross, professional landscape photographer, and this is my Hochland Parker Pro jacket. This red color is my personal signature edition. This is a great jacket system for outdoor photography. Why? It has multiple layers, not just this layer. It has a fleece layer, a mid layer, and this outer layer. It's very waterproof, it's windproof, and it's suitable for any kind of weather conditions. Anyone can wear it, but it's a jacket system aimed at photographers, meaning it has some very nice features like this little pocket with my lens cloth attached here. I can quickly take it out for my glasses or my lens or my filters. Then it has really big pockets here for accessories, and it has a lot of nice pockets inside for batteries, smartphone, SD cards. It's very convenient for me as a photographer to use, not only because of the weather, but also because of all these nice features.
Maybe you also like the photography backpack, winter gloves, or classic jacket system. At www.hawkland.us.
Hawkland. Photographer's clothing.
And that's because I pulled here only on that dial wheel. If I turned another wheel, the camera settings would be totally different. Only importance is it's on 0. 0 means properly exposed. So let's try it with a different motif, the flower in the sun. Back here at my beautiful flower in the sunlight, and when I now not change the settings but use the same settings like I used in the shadow and look at the image, or maybe even take the image, I see, oh, it's a little bright. Because now, when I'm back in the sun, the whole light situation changed. I have to adjust the camera settings. And that is something that you can keep in mind. Whenever the light is changing, you need to change your camera settings. So in this situation now, I can, of course, use that same dial wheel here. And I will do this now. So I use the same aperture. So the F thing is the aperture. I will teach you that later. And I will now go with my 0 game on the 0, and I will change it now to 1/250th of a second. This is my shutter speed, 1/250. So it's a much faster shutter speed. You will also hear now when I take the photo, click, click, very fast. And it's exposed on 0. I can also zoom in now a little bit, doesn't matter. Still stays on 0. If it now would tell you, oh, it's not 0, it's minus 0.5 or something, what would you do? Of course, you will go back to 0. It's the 0 game. Always try to set your marker, to set your exposure on 0. Okay, next situation. Beautiful hotel. Same position where I'm standing, but now I want to photograph again here that hotel. I zoom out a little bit. And what I will do now, I will dial my shutter speed all the way to 1/30th again, like I did here in the shadow. And now we'll dial that other wheel up here, this is the aperture, until I reach the 0. So when I start, I'm very much overexposed. But now, when I dial that wheel, I return back on the 0. And in this case now, it's f22, which is the most you can close an aperture with most lenses. And it's not the best aperture to use, but I will tell you that later. But for now, for our 0 game, for proper exposure, that is totally okay. So total different camera settings, same light situation, same position where I'm standing, but that's what I want to show you. You can choose total different camera settings, doesn't matter. For the 0 game, for the exposure, you can choose whatever camera settings you want to choose. And that is actually what the automatic mode of your camera is doing as well. And you now did it. You used manual mode. You just set all the camera settings yourself, you played the 0 game, and you made 3 proper exposures. What I wanted to show you in this lesson is that it's very easy to set your exposure properly in manual mode without even knowing what aperture means, what it is, what shutter speed is, what ISO is, and so on. You only need to dial your wheels, and you need to know what wheel to dial to make it brighter or darker, and also in which direction maybe. And then just play the 0 game. Set the marker on the 0. Just always try to bring it on 0. And when it's not visible, remember, press your focus, pop, then it's visible, and then you can set it on 0. Your exercise for this lesson, just like with the last lesson in auto mode, is to look for 3 different motifs. And the 3 motifs should be totally different. One in a shadow area, one in a sunny area, and one maybe macro or more landscape, depending what the other shots were like. But it should be totally different, that you can use different camera settings. And you can also make the blindfolded game, I call it sometimes. So just dial anything Just turn your wheels and then try to bring it back to zero. And try to find out what other things might change. Maybe you see something, maybe something is impossible. Maybe it's impossible to get a proper exposure when you are in sun, when your aperture is already closed. Or maybe you recognize that it's impossible to get a sharp, crisp image of a flower in the wind when your shutter speed is too slow. Might be. You will learn later in this course. But that's it for this lesson. This video from my beginner's course Simply Learn Photography from 2023 is part of my photography legacy. Over a period of 5 years, I will publish my courses from learnfromben.com for free and with ads here on YouTube. So everyone can benefit from my knowledge regardless of budget. So subscribe now to the channel and spread the word. And do you want all 9 courses from the last 10 years immediately bundled together and without advertisement at a super affordable price? Then go now to learnfromben.com and get the XXL Bundle as an instant download or stream via the website at www.learnfromben.com. More than 22 hours of the finest learning content on photography, filming and image editing in all levels of skill. Link is in the description and in the comments below. And also check out the sales section with my signature tripods and D-filters and books. Everything is on sale up to 60% off, as long as stocks last. Thank you for your support. Videos from the courses are published every Friday at 5:30 p.m. German time. My name is Jaworskyj and I wish you all some really good photos.